welcome to this brand new show on WION. You're watching Inside South Asia with me, Neha Khanna. It's a show that will take an in-depth look at the week's biggest news stories from South Asia, from geopolitics and the economy to technology, trends, climate and culture. We'll bring you up to speed on all that's making news. Our big focus on the show today. The proverbial snakes in Pakistan's backyard are biting the country hard as relentless terror attacks have turned into a security nightmare for Islamabad. Here's a quick look at what's coming up on the show. In 2011, the then US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had warned Pakistan, saying, "You cannot keep snakes in your backyard and expect them to only bite your neighbor." More than a decade later, those words have proved to be chillingly prophetic and are haunting Islamabad. The Pakistan Taliban, or the TTP, has declared war on the country, carrying out one terror strike after another, killing scores of Pakistani civilians and security forces, declaring a parallel government, practically challenging Pakistan's sovereignty and brazenly issuing threats to the country's top political leadership. For a country that has long been the fountainhead of terrorism, the chickens have now come home to roost.
The snakes in Pakistan's backyard are now biting the country with chilling regularity. The relentless terror attacks by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP, on Pakistani soil have set alarm bells ringing in the corridors of power in Islamabad. The top civilian and military leadership has been in a huddle for days now. Pakistan's National Security Committee, under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, met twice in 4 days, driving home the gravity of the situation. The panel discussed the growing terror attacks in the country, particularly in the Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa provinces. Things came to a head with a recent suicide bombing attempt in capital Islamabad. The TTP has brazenly claimed responsibility for over 350 attacks in 2022, killing and wounding over 1,000 civilians, including children as well as security forces.
जो है वो अपनी किसी जगह से भी अपनी जगह से या अपने ठिकाने से जो है वो वार करता है तो वो बैनुल अक़वामी लॉ के तहत भी और अदरवाइज भी आपको यहाँ हासिल है कि आप उसके ऊपर जो है वो आप अटैक कर सकते हैं। तो ये जो है ये बैनुल अक़वामी लॉ के मुताबिक जो हमारा हक होगा हम उसको एक्सरसाइज करेंगे।
अच्छा, तो क्या अफगानिस्तान के अंदर भी इनके ठिकानों पर कार्रवाई कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, ये तो फिर वक्त आने पे जब ये चीजें सामने आएंगी तो सबसे पहले तो अफगानिस्तान को, क्योंकि हमारा वो बरादर इस्लामी मुल्क है, हम उसे कहेंगे कि ये ठिकाने हैं, इनको खत्म किया जाए और इन लोगों को हमारे हवाले किया जाए। और अगर आगे से तौबा नहीं होता तो फिर ये सारी चीजें जिस तरह से आपने कहा कि फिर मुमकिन है।
The situation has become so alarming that several foreign countries, including the United States and the UK, have issued travel advisories warning their citizens in Pakistan to stay vigilant at all times. At the National Security Committee meeting, both the Prime Minister and Army Chief General Syed Asim Munir have vowed to root out terrorism from Pakistan. But can the country, which has long been recognized as the hotbed of terrorism, really kill the Frankenstein monster it once created?
Before you said you're a diplomat.
Speaking in Vienna, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar minced no words as he described Pakistan as the epicenter of terrorism.
Because this is a country which has attacked the Parliament of India some years ago, which attacked the city of Mumbai, which went after hotels and foreign tourists, which every day sends terrorists across the border.
But of,
so
course,
sometimes
not,
when
but
we
of
talk,
course not as a country.
well, if you control your sovereign space, which I believe they do, if the terrorist camps operate in broad daylight in cities with recruitment and financing, can you really tell me that the Pakistani state doesn't know what's going on? Especially if they're being trained in military-level combat tactics?
It now seems the chickens have come home to roost. Analysts believe Islamabad has all but lost control over large swaths of its territory in the western frontier regions of the country to the TTP. Remember, for decades, Pakistan's deep state, led by the army and the spy agency the ISI, helped create this terrorist demon, which is now devouring its own maker. Not only has the TTP declared war on the Pakistani state, some of its recent actions also indicate a possible design to split the country. The terror outfit has declared a parallel government in Pakistan, one that directly challenges the country's sovereignty. It has divided areas under its control into two zones, a north zone which comprises Peshawar, Malakand, Mardan and Gilgit-Baltistan, and a south zone which consists of Dera Ismail Khan, Bannu and Kohat. The TTP has been running extortion rackets in these areas for quite some time. Now it plans to use them as the staging ground for the establishment of its quasi-state, a regime within the Pakistani regime. These are developments that have sent tremors through Islamabad. The Pakistani establishment says it plans to launch an all-out campaign to wipe out the TTP, dismantle its networks and eliminate its commanders. Not only on Pakistani soil, but also within Afghan territory. But in a sharp reaction, the Taliban's defense ministry has said the claim of the TTP being present in Afghanistan is provocative and baseless and will only further damage relations between the two countries. The statement makes it abundantly clear that the Taliban no longer depends on Pakistan for its survival, and it seems to have also thrown its weight behind the TTP. For decades, Pakistan used the Taliban to expand its influence in Afghanistan. The ISI strategists proudly call the outfit Pakistan's sixth province. The tables have clearly turned as the Taliban is now orchestrating attacks in Pakistan using its offshoot outfits, such as the TTP, to bring Islamabad to its knees.
If there is one thing that recent developments in Afghanistan prove, it is quite clearly this. The Taliban have declared war on the Afghan women and are hell-bent on taking the country back to the Stone Age. Just days after barring Afghan girls from universities, the Taliban regime has now banned women from working with aid agencies. With one diktat after another, the Taliban are erasing women from public life. The tall promises they had made about upholding women's rights have been given a hasty burial. And with their latest move, the Taliban are also pushing to the brink millions of Afghans who are already living in abysmal poverty. Our next report explains how.
People across the world have ushered in a new year, a new beginning, but unfortunately, the women in Afghanistan have found themselves going back in time to centuries-old misogynistic diktats, forcing them behind closed doors. Last week, the Taliban banned women from working with aid agencies. The economic and social condition of Afghanistan is not unknown. The country is on its knees. Most of the Afghan population lives in abject poverty, and more than 50% of people are dependent on humanitarian assistance for their mere survival. And now, in protest against the Taliban's ban, almost all large aid groups have suspended their operations in the crisis-hit country. The United Nations has even pressed the pause button on some of its time-critical programs. World powers have urged the Taliban to immediately reverse what they call a reckless and dangerous decision.
The women that work for CARE and all other NGOs are truly some of the most indispensable, because in Afghanistan, they're absolutely critical to reach those most in need. So all of this work would be at risk, and many more literally millions of people will be suffering the consequences and are at the verge of famine.
By stopping women from working with NGOs, the Taliban are not only quashing their basic rights, but also depriving families of their meager income. Thousands of women work for such groups and are the sole breadwinners in their households.
The Taliban are ordering women not to work. So now that I have a family to look after, how can we survive? My husband is sick. He can't work. I need to pay the bills, house rent, buy medicine. If I don't work, all the things that I need to pay for, where can I get the money from? What should we do?
The Taliban's decision to ban women from working with aid agencies came just days after they stopped women from going to universities.
In most of the universities, men and women were working together, and this system was continuing, which is not allowed according to Sharia law.
The Taliban say they are working to fix these issues and that universities will reopen soon. This is not the first time that people in Afghanistan have heard such empty words. When the Taliban captured power on the 15th of August in 2021, they made tall promises. They claimed their rule would be different from that in the past. Taliban 2.0 promised to be modern, but as time is proof, the new Taliban looks more and more like the old one. The responsibility here lies not just with the Afghan regime, but also with the West. Can they pressure the Taliban to retract its Stone Age diktats? Can they hold the Taliban regime accountable, a regime that's hungry for international recognition and acceptance?
Let's now turn our attention to Nepal. The country recently inaugurated an airport built by the Chinese. An airport that's part of the Nepal-China Belt and Road Initiative. Nepal's new Prime Minister Prachanda has now urged China to facilitate the construction of railway services in that country. Beijing is notorious for laying debt traps even for its friends and is often accused, with good reason, of harboring hegemonic designs on its neighbors. Therefore, could Nepal end up as yet another Chinese satellite? Should Nepal learn from the Sri Lanka experience? Our next report explains the pitfalls of seeking financial assistance from China.
This is Pushpa Kamal Dahal, also known as Prachanda, a former Maoist guerrilla who led a decade-long insurgency against Nepal's monarchy. Last month, he was sworn in as Nepal's Prime Minister for a third time. A development which many said would make Nepal tilt further towards China. This prediction wasn't completely off the mark. Look at this headline. On Sunday, Prachanda inaugurated an airport built with Chinese money. It is called the Pokhara Regional International Airport, or PRIA. This airport is a flagship project of the Nepal-China Belt and Road Initiative. It was constructed with Chinese loan assistance. How much money are we talking about? Approximately $215 million. Beijing gave it to Kathmandu as a soft loan agreement. Goes without saying that Nepal will have to pay this loan back to the Chinese regime. A regime notorious for laying debt traps even for its friends. Yet, Prachanda was all praises for China. Reports say he has even requested China to facilitate the opening of border crossings in order to assist the construction of railway services. What railway services? We don't know that yet, but what we can tell you is that the Chinese surveyors have reached Nepal to work on a railway project linking Tibet to Kathmandu. Yes, China is building a 170-kilometer trans-Himalayan Tibet-Nepal railway line. This project, too, is part of the BRI. It is aimed at making travel in the complex terrain of the Himalayas much simpler.
Hours after communist parties of Nepal came together to form a new government, a group of Chinese experts arrived in Kathmandu to carry out a feasibility study for the construction of the world's highest railway line to connect Nepal and China. The Chinese authorities plan to invest almost $26 million in the study. Although the financial modality of the project is yet to be finalized, the estimate cost of the railway is $2.5 billion.
This development is concerning, especially for India. It already has one neighbor in China's embrace. Now, with the return of Prachanda to power in Nepal, a known pro-China leader whose first move was to inaugurate a Chinese-funded airport doesn't instill much confidence about which side Nepal is going to tilt in the days ahead.
Our next story is from India. The midday meal program, under which nutritious meals are served to children at government-run schools, has been one of the biggest success stories for India in the education sector in the last couple of decades. But now, the government in the western state of Maharashtra has brought in new rules, which many fear could jeopardize this program, and with it, the future of scores of underprivileged children in the state. Here's why.
These are children at a public school in the western state of Maharashtra in India. Here, the kids can be seen enjoying their meals at the school playground. Lunch for these children between 8 and 15 years of age is provided by the school. But little do the kids know that some of them may soon be denied these meals. The reason? Their Aadhaar card not being linked to the government-run midday meal scheme. Aadhaar card is the unique identification proof issued by the Government of India to every citizen. India's midday meal program was launched in 1995. It was designed with the aim of improving the nutritional standing of school-aged children across the country. Under the program, free lunches are provided to children studying in government schools on all working days. It is the program and the nutritious meals that have played a major role in bringing more children to schools and lowering the dropout rates in rural and tribal-dominated areas across India. But late last year, the Maharashtra government brought in a new rule which states that going forward, students' Aadhaar cards must be mandatorily linked to the midday meal scheme for children to have uninterrupted access to these meals. But here is what has caused huge concern.
According to the statewide data, there are about 2.3 crore children studying in aided as well as non-aided schools here in the state of Maharashtra. And during the verification process, the state government in its report found that there are at least 19 lakh students who do not have Aadhaar registration at all. And for the others who do have Aadhaar registration, at least 40 lakh students have error in their Aadhaar card details, which essentially means that in totality, at least 59 lakh students have been affected due to Aadhaar card related issues. And the Maharashtra government's order clearly stated that from January 2023 onwards, the students who do not have Aadhaar cards won't be able to avail the benefits like the midday meal scheme, the school uniforms, the textbooks and other basic essentials that the government schools do provide.
Once implemented, the new rule is likely to deprive scores of underprivileged children of nutrition. There are fears it may also lead to school dropouts. According to estimates, the city of Pune in Maharashtra will be the worst impacted. Pune has the highest number of children who don't possess Aadhaar cards. And that's not all. The revised rules are also likely to have an adverse impact on the appointment of teachers. That is because the recruitment of teachers is based on the total number of students enrolled at a particular school. Hoping to assuage these fears, the state education officials insist no child will be deprived of midday meals, and that they have extended the deadline for schools to complete the registration of every child enrolled with them.
In Pune city, we have 638 schools and nearby 1 lakh 86,500 students for this MDM scheme. We have completed 95% of Aadhaar registration.
Officials claim the new rules will be rolled out only once the Aadhaar registration process has been completed for all children studying at public schools. They also promise that the nutritional value of midday meals served at schools will be improved. It can only be hoped that the Maharashtra government will walk the talk and ensure that the children do not have to suffer on account of bureaucratic red tape, because it's not only their health, but also their education and future that are at stake. With video journalist Sharaf, this is Disha Shah for WION World is One.
And finally, French serial killer Charles Sobraj, also known as the Bikini Killer, was recently released from a prison in Nepal after almost 20 years. No sooner had he walked out of jail, Sobraj was on a flight to Paris. What happened next went viral on the social media. Take a look.
I am innocent in those cases.
Clearly, the look on that woman's face said it all. Can you blame her? Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of Inside South Asia. Do join us again next week as we return with all the action from South Asia. Till then, stay safe and well. I'm Neha Khanna signing off. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to WION World is One.